Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. We are interviewing, as always, a very interesting woman. She's got a very interesting life, and I say interesting in a different way because it really is different. Her name is Farah Faruqi, and that's another thing about her name. She spells it differently, and that fascinates me. She's a woman in focus today. She is with TrainingPort.net.
That's correct.
Welcome in our program. How are you doing?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm doing well, thank you.
So, TrainingPort.net, what is it?
It's an online training company for business aviation.
Aviation?
That's correct.
Flying?
So corporate business jets.
Wow.
So we deliver training to meet regulations for everybody in the flight department, from your pilots to your maintenance to cabin crew, and they train to the regulatory requirements and their risk.
So how did you get into this business?
Aviation's always been a passion.
Really?
So if you remember back in the day, Heathrow Airport and the open viewing deck, I used to go there as a child with my mamu, and he would grab us these gigantic milkshakes, and we would just sit there. Obviously, you can't do it anymore now,
right,
with COVID, well, actually with the 9/11 and everything that happened, security.
Right.
But I would spend every Saturday just on that deck, viewing planes going by me. I had this fascination of being a pilot.
Yes.
My dad was more like, no. No. So that kind of, and it was always in my mind. So I have had various career changes, but 16 years ago, I decided I was going to somehow be involved back in aviation. So I started off dropping off my resumes one day everywhere I could, and landed this job at a private FBO, and where we took care of corporate jets coming in from globally around the world, VVIP clients, and
yes,
just taking care of all their needs, from customs to anything they need while they're in Vancouver.
Isn't that just awesome?
It's been a lot of fun. And then I had the pleasure of being a part of a team and taking care of 2010 Winter Olympics. So we landed and took off phenomenal number of planes for the entire month, for the duration, when all the restrictions were there. So I was personally responsible for all the slot reservations and security.
Okay.
So I had clients call me from around the world, and it was really comical. And I think I probably did the most overtime hours that I ever have done in one month. Yeah, in 1 month it was crazy. I mean, we worked closing ceremony and opening ceremony. Literally worked 22 hours straight. It was like everyone was, because we were the only private terminal that had full-on security clearance, and it was allowed to have takeoff and landings 24 hours.
Oh my God!
So yeah,
that must have been a very exciting time in your life, and you must have taken a whole month off after that.
I slept for 3 straight days.
Oh, really?
I was so burnt out. I remember, I don't have no recollection. I left the office so tired when the last plane, which was the Sochi aircraft with the flag, they left, and I was like, but then suddenly, with having all that chaos and that adrenaline rush for those 30 days, it was so calm that I could hear my own heartbeat, and that was suddenly very scary, because I was like, oh, what was my life? What did I do before this? It took a bit of an adjustment.
Of course, you must have felt boring after that. I
was very bored, and that's where if I'm not occupied and I'm not
rush.
And it's crazy, because my doctors say you need to slow down and need to change your lifestyle, and I'm like, but I'm the healthiest when I'm absolutely crazy and just on adrenaline, so I need to be there. So yeah, it was a fun, great time, and then I was contracted by a corporate sponsor to fly down to England and help them for the 2012 Olympics. Wow! So I spent a lot of trips back and forth to organize the emergency evacuation plans and move all of just their aircraft. So they had 16 aircrafts. We moved 16 aircrafts into 20 helicopters and in and out. And I coordinated all of that with them. So
you're a good coordinator.
Yeah, I've been dual nationality.
Right.
I had just to sit the exams for the security clearance for the airports. So I had access to all of the airports. So we were bouncing from Stansted to Luton, back and forth. And the motorways, as you know, in England
it's just
are
brutal.
Awful.
Yes.
So just squirming through traffic to make sure we got there before the jets got there or before, and nobody landed in the same airport.
No.
There had to be
different ones.
different ones. And then, you know, the opening ceremony was the one where most of the CEOs and executives came in. So we had to be on guard, nobody fall asleep, because anything happens, we have to do a quick evacuation.
Wow.
So again, a huge adrenaline rush, but it was
So
a
that
lot
was
of fun.
2012.
That was 2012.
So has life been very boring since then, because there's been no more? Have you done any other?
I really wanted to, and if offered, I would do it in a heartbeat.
You would.
I loved it. It was crazy times. It was intense, but I really do love that adrenaline rush. I was supposed to do Sochi.
Yes.
But I was told no.
No.
I had a lot of clients who are friends now that flew in from Russia, and they said, don't do it.
Don't do it. Oh,
Don't do
I
it.
see.
So, and then,
But if we have Olympics here again, you probably would be the first one to put your hand up.
I would definitely volunteer. I don't know. I think life did slow down, but then I changed positions. My current position keeps me so occupied because it's so different for every flight department, every company, that it keeps me on my toes, and regulations are always forever changing. Transport Canada,
of course,
and it's not, you know, I laughed with my president, my boss, when I first when he hired me, and he was concerned that, oh, she's going to get bored and then she's going to leave, and I'd be like, well, okay, let me understand this. And then when I actually got up there, I thought, okay, well, it's sales, it's helping. This should be easy,
right?
And when when I sat with him the first time and he explained all the different regulations just within Canada and then the US and then Europe, and I'm like, what on earth have I got myself into? Like, okay, can I tap out now? Like, I don't know, but it's been just such
So that's been fun as well.
It has been a lot of fun.
I want to take you back to your childhood, and you talked about Heathrow. So, you know, Heathrow has airplanes coming in every minute.
Yes.
So let's take a short commercial break, get the program paid for, and we'll come and talk to you again.
Sounds good.
Farah is our woman in focus today. Isn't she interesting? Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Farah Faruqi is our woman in focus today. So Farah, we were talking about you, born and brought up in England, I understand.
That's correct.
So, and went to Heathrow Airport whenever you could. We lived very close to the airport in Hounslow, and the plane would go over our house every minute. So you must have seen like thousands of planes landing and taking off.
Oh, I do. And, you know, to this day, I never get bored.
No.
I'm sitting in my office, and if the F-18s come by, stop everything. I'm not interested. I can break a conversation and I can go right to the window. Just that roar of them taking off is just so exciting to this day.
Wow.
It's just really crazy.
You should have been a pilot. Yeah. So childhood, you said Dad didn't want you to be, you know, becoming a pilot. How was childhood? What did Mom and Dad do, and how did you guys get to England? Was it from Africa?
No, it's actually, well, it once used to be one big country, India, and until they split, and then they're in Pakistan, they're on the Pakistan side.
Okay.
Dad, apparently, this is the story that Mom tells, is that he promised after they got married they'll go to England for him to buy her a sewing machine that she really wanted.
Oh, singer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why she came to England, and to this day she's still waiting for that sewing machine.
Never got it.
Never got it. She had various other sewing machines, but she never got that machine that he promised her.
So how many siblings?
We're 5 altogether.
Really?
We're 5.
Must have been a fun household to grow up.
Oh, it was. I think poor Mom, we would absolutely drive her
her up the
crazy,
wall.
because we would just drive each other up the wall, and she would be that typical, I'm not going to be mean, wait until your dad gets home, right? So it was always that, wait until you stop it now, I'm wait until your dad gets home.
Yeah.
And then when Dad got home, she would say, and Dad would be like, okay, that's it. And then he would have this fantastic barter slipper, like, you know, the famous barter slipper that always everyone had. And he would be like, okay, that's it. in that room, and then suddenly the mother kicks in and it's like, don't you touch my children. Well, I don't understand. You told me that we wanted to discipline them. But he just had this look. Dad always had this look where you cross, you're at that line now, you just stop. And apparently I have that look now too.
Oh, your children tell you that?
No, my children, actually, my bosses have told me that.
You have that look. What is that look? Let's have a look.
I honestly, I couldn't tell you, because if someone says it, but apparently I give that look. When I get to that point where like, and then they just say, you have that look that just says, duh.
Duh.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't think I did, but I apparently have that look now. And Dad always had that look. He would just look at you and be like, okay, we can't. But I was probably the most rebellious of all the children.
Oldest?
No, I have a brother that's older than me.
Right.
So I'm the second child. I was more the opposite. I was just like more, the traditional.
Yeah.
The girls have just got to go to school enough to get an education, then you get married and you take care of your kids and you take care of your home.
That's
and
it.
I'm like, what the heck, that's never going to happen. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something with my life.
Right. When I sit at the airport, I'm going to watch all those planes come and go.
I don't know why I'm watching them, but they fascinate me, and I'm going to do something with that later on in my life.
So did you do your education in aviation at all? What did you do your education in?
No. Interestingly enough, all of my careers, every career I've had, I've had no knowledge whatsoever of them.
No kidding.
I came to, when we moved to
Canada?
To Canada.
Yeah.
We came from London to Newfoundland.
Wow. Wow. That must have been a trip.
It was a real eye-opener, because it was suddenly coming from London where everything's at reach. You don't have to look for anything. The language difference.
Yes.
And I learned a lot of things. I mean, and a lot of stuff that, they couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand them.
Of course not.
And it was a lot of fun.
But how long did you live in Newfoundland?
4 years, 2 years, 2 years and then 3 years in Labrador.
Wow. That's an experience. That is an experience of a lifetime, because anybody that I've talked to of our background and have lived there love that place.
I loved it. The people are absolutely so warm and they're such wonderful people. The only downside is they knew everything. Like they knew everything. It was such a small community. They knew I was pregnant before I knew I was pregnant.
Oh.
They knew I was going on a trip to back home to England, and I didn't even know I was going on a trip.
Right.
So when you're walking down, it's a very small little town, and you're walking through, and they're congratulating you, and they're congratulations, but nothing else, and you're like, okay, thanks. But what are you congratulating me for? To go home to find out the phone rings and it's like, oh, you're pregnant. Oh, okay. And then and at one point, I honestly, when I first got there, I thought my home was rigged and it was bugged and everyone's just watching, because they just knew a lot of stuff. But they were very warm. I mean, if anything you needed, But it was a definite wake-up call. I mean, growing up in London, you took everything for granted.
That's true.
Like you just run down if you want something. I never did anything. I mean, like everything was right there. So when you have to bake your own bread, and you're like, who you what? Okay. So I learned everything. In Newfoundland, there wasn't any jobs. I mean, as you know, people have their jobs and they have them forever for life.
Right.
And then there's a whole bunch of people in queue waiting for people to either retire or pass on before they can get their jobs.
Right.
So as an outsider, I stood no chance.
No.
So that was 5 years of my life where I watched a lot of game shows and soap operas. I even watched Coronation Street. Growing up in England, I never watched Coronation Street. So I was exposed to everything that I never thought I would ever do. My kids kept me busy. Kids were...
So they were both born there?
No, my daughter's a newfie. My son was 8 months old when we came out.
Before we started the interview, she said, I'm a very boring person. No, not at all. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Farah Faruqi. So Farah, Newfoundland to Vancouver. The journey must have been amazing. You've got 2 kids, I understand. Let's talk a little bit about the kids first.
Sure.
Yeah, tell me about them.
Well, the kids are 35 and 33 years old. My son is a counselor. He
Yes.
he just completed his master's in counseling, and he works anything. So everything in his life is revolved around "let me help you" philosophy,
I
kind of
see.
like
Okay.
he plays a shrink. My daughter works for a law firm, so she's a paralegal. So it kind of drives me crazy, and I love where I say to them, okay, so one's going to play the psychological games on me, the other one's going to just run all the legal terms on me. I've got myself covered both ways. But yes, they're all in their own little lives, all grown up, and I told them, I would always tell them, do whatever you want in life, pick a career as long as it's legal and morally right. I don't care. It's your life. You choose. My son, he wanted to have a great break after he finished a high school before he went to college. And I thought, no. If you're going to sit at home and you're going to play video games, it's not happening. You're not collecting welfare. So you're going to go out and get a job. So either you continue your education, because I want you to continue your education,
Right.
or you get a job. And the same with my daughter, because my daughter, I will laugh to this day. She wanted to take a break before she started university, and I made her go to university. And she's like, I don't want to. And I was like, you're going to. And I don't care how. She goes, well, can I take a year off and travel around Europe? And I thought, over your dead body, and I'll arrange it. And she was like, well, no, I won't go on my own. You come with me. I thought, you want me to just stop everything I'm doing and come to Europe because I'm paying you a wage? She goes, yeah, we'll work as we go along. And I'm like, well, no, honey, we can't. So you go to university, mommy will go to work, and everything will be great.
After you finish university, we can go and discover the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Did that happen?
Well, we've been to New York. We were planning on going to Dubai. That was going to be our trip, but then the world shut down. So,
Oh, COVID happened.
yes.
When is this COVID going to end? Has it affected your business?
Well, I don't travel. I travel a lot for my work. I would
Right.
at least be traveling 2 weeks of a month, every month.
Right.
I haven't moved since March.
Really?
So now I'm kind of getting antsy. I mean, I usually normally travel right throughout Canada.
Right.
I haven't been back to Newfoundland yet, but I've pretty much have hit the furthest end of the East Coast
Wow.
imaginable.
That's fantastic. You've got two different jobs. One as sales, and the other job, what does that make you do?
Consulting, it's just helping. It's just helping, guiding a startup company.
Okay. And how's that going?
It's going well. Once he's ready to launch, it will be very unique.
Dividing your time between two different companies, how's that working out for you?
You know, I always laugh with my life. I have my full-time job, which I know is my full-time job. Then I always look at doing extra things on the side, which is going to be very casual, on contract, very small.
Right.
But then before you know it, both of them are full-time. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't sign up for this.
No, but that's okay, because you are the type of person who can do 8 and 8, 16 hours of work.
I'm getting old now, so I don't think my body's saying, pack it in.
I doubt very much. How long did it take you to lose your British accent? It still comes out once in a while.
Okay, so when I talk to people, they immediately say either I'm Australian or I'm British.
Yes.
If I go back to England,
Yes.
if I'm exposed to my family for 24 hours, I
Yeah.
come back and I completely pick up all the lingo and all the
Yes.
slang, and then it drives everybody bonkers.
Yeah.
Right? Then it just like absolutely, it's a good thing the president of my company, he's Scottish.
Oh, I
so
see.
he, when I first started with him, he would always say, they don't say that here, Farah.
Yeah.
You mean this. And
Yeah.
then he would just correct me and I'd be like, because everyone, when I say something to them, they would just look at me like, what did he just say?
Yeah.
And then they would just get a kick out of it, because
That's right.
and I still say, like, no, don't leave your rubbish lying around. And they'd be like, my what? What is that? now they're so used to it. Now they actually
Rubbish is a
Yeah.
word that they've adopted as well.
Yeah, they've adopted it.
Yeah.
So kids don't have any British
No.
in them at all. They have the
they're Canadian.
terminology
Right.
from the words they've learned from mom.
Yeah.
And like a good example is my son when he was little, and you know, the car, you have the boot and the bonnet, and I still say boot, and no matter what.
Yes.
So my son was at school and he had to take his homework. He goes, oh, sorry, miss, I forgot it in my boot. And what he meant was his mom's car.
Yes.
And she's like, well, no, you can't get it in your boot. And then he got a detention for it. So he was like, Mum, you got me into trouble. And then I had to call up and explain to the teacher like what he meant. And then I just blank out, because then I try and find the Canadian alternative version, the word, and it just does not come to me.
No.
And then it's like,
it's the boot.
yeah, it's like, well, oh, the backside of the car. What do you call it?
The trunk.
There you go. And it will never come to me.
Farah, it's interesting that the British words were being used in Africa as well, India as well, and you know, all the countries that Britain colonized.
I know, we left a trademark everywhere.
Having said that, living in England and living here, can I ask you which one do you like the most?
You know, I love Vancouver. I love British Columbia. And having traveled all over England and all over Canada, it makes me really happy to come back to Vancouver.
This is home?
This is home. When I go back to England, the family, I love the family, and
Yes.
you go back to visit the family. But England is not the England that I remember growing up as a child.
Yeah.
It has changed so much that there's no regrets. And my parents always say, they go, move back. What are you doing there thousands of miles away from us? Like, Dad, I'll go to Scotland, but I'm not going to come back to London. Like, I'll go anywhere else. I'm not coming back to England. And then I say, well, why don't you move to Canada? And I'm like, well, move here. Like, no, people don't care of your race, what your religion is. It's a live and let live, and there's respect for everybody. And that's kind of gone away in England, and it changed as we were growing up, and me going back and really seeing it. And it's comical because, you know, the Brits unfortunately have rubbed up a lot of people the wrong way in different parts of the world, right? So I remember going to Paris because I had my Canadian passport on me. She was super friendly. She shrugged off my sister completely.
And
she carried my bags
Yeah.
and took me out of the store, and very chatty.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't understand. She goes, you still have your British accent. I'm like, well, that's because I am holding a Canadian passport. And they don't like the Brits, because you Brits were not nice to the people in France.
That's right, especially during EU time.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk like this forever, couldn't we? And you said to me you had nothing to talk about.
Well,
Take that back. Thank you, Farah, for being our Woman in Focus today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we'll talk to you again.
Sure.
Farah Faruqi has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.